Welcome back to another round of insane horror flicks, and let me tell you guys, this lineup here is probably the wildest one yet. There was a couple times in here where I thought I was just straight up losing my mind, and also I gotta warn you, this one's a little gooey. Number 7. Let's begin this one with one that's pretty recent, with 2024's Kryptic. It begins with a hiking expedition of a woman's group out to the place called Crypto Peak, and I hope there's a dog wearing a cape up there. I mean, it's that guy's year after all. Seems like the hike has become popular because a famous cryptozoologist went missing up there, and her tent was found, but no trace of her at all. Kay gets curious and wanders off on her own and keeps spotting bits of red fabric all over the place, and then an odd creature. But then it gets weird when she sees it and a liquid comes out of her ears and her eyes flash, so she runs back to the group. Right after, she spaces out, not responding to her own name, and goes home, seemingly not knowing who she is. Problem is, she's a vet, and she gets called in, but it seems like another person is inside of her as opposed to just losing her memory. Like whoever she is, she's obsessed with looking up information about the Suka and the disappearance of Barb, except that it appears that she looks just like her. But when someone shows up to her house, she hightails it back up to the woods, heading to places where the Suka had been seen before. So she begins her quest, encountering oddball people along the way, and watching video of the missing Barb, who is also herself, and she's married. She meets another woman out there that's also on the hunt for it since it took her daughter away. But there's also these flashes of the creature and a woman wearing a red hood. And what the hell is going on here? Especially when she seems to attack a woman in a bar with weird, sticky results. And look, based on the name and the box art, if you're expecting a film about cryptids and creatures in the woods, you're not really getting that, because this is a strange tale of a search for identity and encounters with unique people and places instead. And it's the feature film debut for director Courtney Roy, and it's from Canada, getting some strong reviews about the acting and cool visuals. However, I will say that the film has a really strong start and pulls you into the mystery, but then gets a bit lost as it goes on, and Barb/Kay has those little random encounters that seem kind of unfocused, and it loses the momentum that it's built up. Expect lots of sexually charged scenes, but ones that are just extra gooey, like Cronenberg sticky. And the last act of this one is just wild, and well, just look at the film's title. Number 6. Let's go back a bit and head to 1974 for a little lost weird treasure called The Mutations, or The Freak Maker. We get some footage of some plants like the Venus flytrap, and the voiceover might sound extremely familiar, and yep, it turns out to be Loomis himself, and he's a professor teaching a class about genetic mutations. After the class, one of his students goes wandering through the nearby woods and is stalked by a couple of little people and then grabbed up by a guy with facial deformities. They're part of a local freak show that's in town, and if their boss, Lynch, sounds kind of familiar, it's because under all that makeup, he's a doctor. The fourth, to be specific. But then we're treated to some odd time-lapse photography for some reason. They've kidnapped that young woman to use as part of an experiment, but don't worry about that because we have more time-lapse oranges to gawk at. But the whole purpose of the experiments is this big ray gun that reverses mutations, and he takes a visiting doctor back to show off his lab. There, he has these Audrey 2-sized plant creatures, and he just feeds a rabbit to one of them, and it screams. Meanwhile, there's a bearded lady here, and this guy right here, Michael Dunn, was in a good amount of stuff, including a pretty notable Star Trek episode and a run on Wild Wild West. But he died right in the middle of the film's production, and the details of his death have never been released. But it's possible that it was due to his condition, but there were rumors that he committed suicide as well, but that's merely speculation. Now, here's where things get a little wild, because we see the people that they have pegged as freaks, and they're basically just people with birth malformations, and people with skin conditions, and one girl that clearly just has an eating disorder. But most insane of all is Popeye. And yep, this is a man who can literally actually pop his eyes out of his sockets. It's gross. And in case you thought that the whole freaks reference was unintentional,
he's one of us.
Yes, let's toast to that. Here's to Mr. Lynch.
We accept you.
He's one of us.
And this one storyline is somewhat straightforward, I mean, for the most part, but then it has these weird sideshow tangents and random lectures about the plant world and probably too many time-lapse sequences of Venus flytraps. But it's also weird in that it just goes in every direction that it can without much sense, but also takes some time to make one of their main baddies, Lynch, really sympathetic. But right here's where it goes totally off the rails, because with all of these plot elements up in the air, they then throw in a man who is also a human-plant hybrid, who is also a fly trap, because why not? And this oddity is from Jack Cardiff, a man mostly known for his cinematography, and he worked on some really high-profile projects in that capacity, like Ghost Story, Conan the Destroyer, Rambo, Cat's Eye, just a lot. But he's also directed a handful of films, and this would end up being the final one. It looks like Pleasance's role in this film was originally meant for Vincent Price, although that didn't happen, so I'm going to assume due to issues with pay. It had a low budget, but was such a bust that Cardiff gave up directing because of it and decided to stick with cinematography. Number 5. I'll probably just have to say the title of this next one for you to realize why it's on here, because we're now going to 2011's return to Bloodfart Lake. Yep, return. Because I've already covered terror at Bloodfart Lake in an older video, and this is the sequel to that. The ending of that one had the villainous killer defeated, and the kid commanding him was, well, shoved up the final girl's butt. Ben is back from the first film, and it seems like Jimmy is killing once more, and this guy has the Beth death scene.
I'm dying, and I'm dead. No!
And Ben realizes that he needs more help, once again, from Leo DeChamp. We then meet a group of oddballs that are spirit hunters, and weirdly, one of them is a character from the first film that was killed, but she's back here with no explanation. But there's also Shawnee Ramone, a character that first appeared in a different film that we'll talk about a little later. Leo is back too, and this is like this character's 4th or 5th appearance, and again, I'll mention that later. They head up to the lake and come across a couple of country bumpkins trying to warn them to turn back, and shenanigans ensue.
Watch how I exit this scene! You tell me if it doesn't rival Judy Garland's performance in The Man with Two Units from 1951!
They also meet up with Moses LaFontaine, who is quite the character himself.
The man knows how to write a tune. You!
Whoa, who, me?
Check your jacket.
Whoa! No way!
They goof around a little bit, but Ben heads up there as well, and I would like to point out that this movie is only 1 hour and 11 minutes long, and we're at the 40-minute mark, and there's been no action from our killer so far, but it's just overall silly, insane goofiness.
He looks at my shirt, and it happened to bear the logo of my favorite band at the time, the Swanky Modes.
Just letting you know that your tapehead reference is very much appreciated. But then the killing starts, with Korn, of course, and once again, it seems up to Ben and Leo to save the day. And this is another one from Chris Seaver, and I've featured a number of his films in various lists before, but honestly, insane horror is where he belongs. And he's made a whole bunch of flicks, and I want to say that it's a shared universe, since there's repeating characters, although they tend to die, but then show back up elsewhere. So I guess it's alternate universes? But Shawnee has been in a couple of the other films before this, and so was Leo, and he's one of the more frequent recurring roles here. This is pretty much what you'd expect from a Seaver film if you've watched any of them before, and it's the same brand of humor and even a handful of the same jokes, but I actually kind of enjoy these for what they are with all of their wackiness, and it's definitely insane. Number 4. Here's one that's brand new, and it's from 2025 and called Soul to Squeeze. We can see it's going to be weird immediately since the opening cuts between an animation showing how an eyeball works, cut between someone prepping ground beef. We're then introduced to Jacob here, and he goes to this house and signs a series of release forms as he's volunteering to be a part of some sort of experiment. He gets a phone call, and we see rather quickly that Jacob has some big extreme anger issues. But then things get bizarre when he discovers another person there who tells him that he's a dog, and presto, he's a dog. He's told that he's in a cross, a place where his physical body and spiritual self coexist, but then he vanishes. The next day, a game show host appears and tampers with reality, and it's hard to say what's real and what's not. Like, things keep getting more bizarre as he almost drowns in a bathtub full of hair, and then is visited by a flower that turns into a woman, then sees a burping mermaid. He's also drowning in self-loathing and constantly insults himself, even when shown pleasant memories. And then there's this thing.
Good one, Jacob.
Whatever this thing is. He then goes through a series of hallucinations and odd visual treats, including a domed light on the ceiling that transforms into an eye because someone's seen brain damage. But is this all in Jake's head? What is this experiment? He's gonna have to confront his own dark past to find out. But what the hell is this? And if it's not really a horror film, like, maybe it's not even sci-fi in a way, because it's mainly a psychedelic adventure into this guy's self-realization, and it's directed by W.M. Weikart, who also co-wrote it. This appears to be his feature film debut, but he's done a number of shorts and music videos before this. Now, one thing that's interesting about this one from a technical aspect is that over the course of the film, it actually changes aspect ratios. When it starts, it's in 4:3, which is the square format that you'll be familiar with from old TV shows when televisions were box-shaped. But over the course of the movie, it slowly broadens out and finishes up in a widescreen shape. One other thing that's wild is the physical transformation that actor Michael Thomas Santos goes through, since it's clear that this was shot over time as his hair grows wilder and he loses quite a bit of weight. It's an odd film, and you'll have to be in the mind for an abstract art film sort of thing that will leave you thinking, but it's a solid and insane watch.
Jacob, let go.
Number 3. We're taking this international now, and the next entry will clearly be obvious why it's on here from the title, because it's 2011's zombie-ass Toilet of the Dead. You heard that correctly. It starts with a mad scientist and a young girl, and he beats up a zombie, which forces something to come out of its throat and go into the girl, which she seems to have experienced before. We then get a young girl who is relentlessly bullied, but it's just a flashback that Megumi is having, and she's on a trip with some friends, and this nerdy guy is with them too, although he has a tendency to just throw up everywhere. That bullied girl was Megumi's sister, and it seems she blames herself for not helping her, as she eventually committed suicide. So, here's where it gets weird. They go fishing, and inside one of them they find a parasite worm, and the model girl realizes that she can use it to get skinnier, and eats it. But then a zombie shows up and chomps down on Take's finger, and they try to get to a hospital, but their car has been stolen. Then Maki's stomach is sick and she has to use the restroom, farting up a storm. And there's one of the grossest bits I've seen in a while, as there's a whole zombie down there in the poop. And don't worry, I won't show it, but just know that they make it as gross as they can. And it reaches up to grab her butt, so I guess we have a rationale for the title. And the hilarious bit is that the whole time that this is going on, Maki is just squatting there, not moving. But I guess that guy's not the only one, because a whole horde of undead pop up from the toilets. And even stranger, a tentacle thing bursts from Maki's derriere. There's a little Evil Dead tribute. And there's a whole lot of ass happening. And it seems those parasitic things are inside of them, and they have a brain on their back. And it just gets weirder from here with parasitic egg pasta, lots and lots of farts, and butt creatures, and a very different meaning for sitting on your face. Clearly, this is from Japan, and it's directed by Noboru Iguchi, who also made Machine Girl. And he's very clearly intrigued by posteriors because he did a segment in the ABCs of Death called F is for Fart, as well as a segment for a film called Grave Torture entitled Bad Butt. And it's weird. The funny thing is that it's probably less weird than some of his other work, like Machine Girl, although that one is more widely known. But if you want insane, this is definitely that. Although if you're upset by farts and poop, you may want to avoid it. Number 2. Alright, this is going to get really strange since we're going to 2009's Final Flesh. It starts, and this is the opening credits. This lets us know that we're in for something special.
Mom and Dad, I'm scared. We have to get out of here.
There's nothing that anyone can do. We're gonna die.
That's right.
Okay, so right now, it seems like it's just really cheap and bad and not weird, but then a woman disrobes to take a bath, but instead douses herself with liquid from a jar marked Tears of Neglected Children and sensually rubs it into her body. But it doesn't end there. Nope, there's another jar marked Angel Blood, which is also clear like water. But wait, there's more. There's another jar, and it says Tears of Corrupt Politician, but there's just a white mouse inside. But then the other woman goes to a door with a handwritten sign saying it's the Psychosexual Burn Ward, which she takes down, which is fair because it's just the bathroom. There, she starts reading aloud from the Quran, but then leaves.
Ooh, I really stuck the place up.
Okay, now let's see how this gets weirder. Well, now the guy decides to have a house vote, but it appears that the only reason he did so was to get the women to raise their arms so that he can smell their armpits. But then Pam, I guess, lays an egg, and not to be outdone, her mother lays a cantaloupe. So Pam raises the ante by giving birth to a raw steak that she names Mr. Peterson and attempts to breastfeed it. But then when Mr. Pollard passes out, they convince him that he wakes up as a newborn baby and he attempts to return to the womb. Next, there's this other family and they wake up saying they died and are in the afterlife. But then one has a change jar that Dad puts worms into. Cut to Dad on the phone in a steamy bathroom in his underwear saying, "I am blind," or "blonde," I can't tell which, over and over again.
I am blind.
Guys, this is only 15 minutes in. I don't even know. There's no end to that sentence, just I don't even know. But then there's notes from under the door that say that they're from God. And then this woman holds a knife up to the throat, which she says turns her British. After some more weirdness, yet another family awakens saying that they're alive again. And yeah, this continues for the duration. There's no real plot here. It's just these oddball scenarios from 4 different families all waking up after the ending of the world. And here's what this is. This is actually all written by Vernon Chatman, a multiple Emmy Award-winning producer who has a big hand in South Park. But he's also the creator of the classic weird show Wonder Chosen and was a top writer for Conan O'Brien for a while. Oh, he's also the voice of Towley. This was a strange little pet project in which he took 4 different amateur porn companies whose specialty was acting out clients' fantasies. You send them a script and then they would act it out. So Chatman sent scripts to 4 of them over the course of 6 years, with only one instruction: stick to the script. Although it was sent to porn companies and there is a large amount of nudity involved, this isn't a pornographic film, although there's a handful of things that cross the line that would give this one an X rating instead of an R1. But if you're expecting to see like these adult actors engaging in adult acts with each other, you'll be disappointed.
In my shell, I can hear the ocean. I can... Oh no! On the beach! Or murder!
The director is credited as Ike Sanders, although it's hard to tell if that's a real person or if it's just a collective name given to the companies that made the segments. It seems that the actors involved simply thought that these were requests from a more eccentric client as opposed to an actual filmmaker making an art piece. And that's what this is. It's an experimental art piece about the end of the world, and it's bizarre. Really bizarre. If you have a taste for the surreal, you'll dig this like I did in its kooky aesthetic, and it's pretty damn funny as well. Like, there's a scene where a woman unzips a man's pants, and instead of pulling out a body part, it's a block of cheese, which she then takes a cheese grater to. He seems to get pleasure from this, and the gratings spell out the word nature on the ground. That woman then realizes that her beauty is a weapon, and she chooses to commit optical suicide by looking in the mirror.
Death is a prenatal memory. The existence of the universe is the 3rd greatest coincidence to ever happen.
Number 1. Let's finish this up with what is possibly the most bizarre that we're gonna get. And if not, then it's the grossest, and yeah, even grosser than zombie ass, and it's 2017's Kuso. There's not a single second wasted with normalcy, since the opening bit is a newscast interrupted by a man with pustules all over his face, singing a song about an earthquake.
Your God is from the underground, so when you pray, you cannot fuck around.
So, I'll break this down early, but this film is a sort of anthology about 4 different sets of people in LA. The first is a couple named Missy and Kenneth, and they have a peculiar sex life. And you'll notice, also, sores and pustules on their faces as well. Again, it's really, really gross, so I'll spare you some of the more, wet shots. But don't get too comfortable, because there's also little snippets with animation. Another story is Charlie, who has more facial growths than the others, and he attends this school out in the woods, and he's taunted for his inability to hold his poo in. And man, there's so many butts and poop in this episode. I'm sorry. But well, Charlie finds a creature out in the woods, and he feeds it his feces. There's another story about a woman named Angel, and she's despondent and talking about sacrificing her baby, but a booming voice talks to her and tells her that her baby is trapped in a hole, and she needs to get to her before the beast does. To add to the insanity, there's also edited bits of what I think is the Match Game and a digitally altered Richard Dawson. Stay strapped in though, because then we meet Dr. Clinton. And yes, that is his royal funkiness, George Clinton. And I don't know if you know this, but George was a co-writer for some of the songs on the Howard the Duck soundtrack, which is just another reason why that movie is magical. The final vignette focuses on Bee, a woman who lives with 2 weird furry creatures named Kazo and Mazu. And if one of them sounds familiar, it's because it's Hannibal Buress. She finds out that she's pregnant from spaghetti and goes to a clinic and meets Manuel, who is trying to get over his fear of breasts. And I feel like describing this just doesn't have a point. There's no real narrative this, and it's just a string of surreal head trips. And it's by Flying Lotus, which is the stage name of Steven Ellison, the musician, producer, DJ, and video maker who has been circling the underground and cool kids scene for decades. He did a bunch of the bumpers for Adult Swim and was the radio host for Fly Low FM and Grand Theft Auto 5. And this was his feature debut, just coming into the scene in the wildest way possible. After this, he did one of the segments for VHS 99 and the way more mainstream feature, Ash. Because of his street cred, this was a somewhat hyped film at the time, and let me tell you, no one was prepared for it. It screened at Sundance, and it said that it holds the record for number of walkouts during the showing, and was referred to as the grossest film of all time by a few sources. It's got an all-star soundtrack with Flying Lotus himself contributing, along with Aphex Twin, who knows a thing or two about disturbing films. And if you are even slightly queasy at the thought of bodily fluids and dung and ooze and all that, stay the hell away from this film. For the sake of YouTube, I'm mainly showing most of the safer imagery here, but rest assured, finding them wasn't easy. So there you have it, 7 more dips into depravity and the weirdest things that I've seen in a while. This was a set of movies. Pretty strange stuff. Let me know if you can think of some weirder ones. Put them down below in the comments if you think that you know some stranger movies than even these ones. Tell me that in the comments. Which of these intrigues you and do you want to check out now? Tell me that as well. If you like this video, click on that like button. I want to hear that. Also, if you like the channel, subscribe to it and hit the bell to get notified when videos go live. And go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/movietimelines and help support this channel and keep it going and keep me out of the loony bin. But yeah, we're going to have some more really messed up and strange, insane movies coming very soon. Thanks a lot and see you later. Bye-bye.